Before we begin, this story is shared with permission. Details have been altered to protect privacy. While it discusses infidelity and emotional abuse, the focus is on empowerment and red flags to watch for. If you're in a similar situation, prioritize your safety. Resources are linked below. The PI's report sat in my lap. One photo changed everything. My partner kissing a pregnant woman. Her due date, my birthday. It started with little things. Jake would turn his phone face down when I walked into the room. He stopped wearing the cologne I bought him. At first, I told myself I was imagining things, that after 3 years together, it was normal for routines to change. But then came the Thursday night he swore he was working late. I drove past his office at 9 p.m. and the parking lot was empty. When I asked about it, he didn't even blink. "Must have been in the back lot," he said, kissing my forehead like I was being silly. That kiss felt different, like he was patting a dog. The real gut punch came on our anniversary. Jake had always gone all out. Handwritten letters, reservations at our favorite restaurant. This year, he showed up 2 hours late with wilted grocery store flowers. "Crazy day at work," he mumbled, already scrolling through his phone. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my best friend's words echoed in my head. "Just hire a PI if you're so worried." I'd laughed it off then. But now I was Googling private investigators at 3 a.m. 2 days later, I found the hotel receipt in his jacket pocket for a room downtown. On a night he'd told me he was visiting his sick mom. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. That's when I knew. I had to be sure. The PI's office smelled like coffee and worn leather. Mark, a former cop with kind eyes, listened without judgment as I explained everything. "Here's what I need you to understand," he said, leaning forward. "Once we start, there's no unseeing what we find. Are you ready for that?" I nodded, tears burning my eyes. I wasn't ready, but I had to know. The first reports came in a week later. Photos of Jake at work, at the gym, having beers with coworkers. Part of me felt relieved and guilty for doubting him. Then Mark called, his voice careful. "He's lying about where he goes after the bar." That night, I stared at the blurry photo Mark sent. Jake walking into an apartment building I didn't recognize. A woman's shadow in the window. My stomach twisted. Suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted answers anymore. But the wheels were already in motion. The first week of surveillance felt like living in a bad movie. Every morning, I'd wake up to an email from Mark with timestamps and locations. Jake at the office, Jake at lunch, Jake at the gym. Normal stuff. Boring even. Part of me started to feel stupid for spending $2,000 on what was basically a glorified babysitter. Then on day 8, Mark called. His voice had that careful tone people use before they drop a bomb. "Your boyfriend left work early today. Said he was going to a client meeting downtown." A pause. "He's at a condo in River North. Been there 2 hours." I drove there in a daze, my hands slick on the wheel. The whole way I prayed for traffic, some excuse to turn around. But Chicago streets were eerily empty that afternoon. The building was nice. One of those modern high-rises with a doorman. I sat across the street in my car, staring at the entrance like it might bite me. That's when I saw her. A blonde woman in workout clothes stepped out of the lobby, checking her phone. She looked normal. Pretty in an effortless way. The kind of woman who probably did yoga and drank green juice. My stomach churned. Mark's text buzzed in my pocket. He's still inside. Apartment 12B. I waited. An hour passed. Then the door opened again and Jake walked out, laughing, relaxed, wearing a t-shirt I'd never seen before. He kissed her cheek before heading toward the parking garage. Casual, familiar, like he'd done it 100 times. That's when the real pain hit. Not the sharp screaming kind, but a deep ache that started in my chest and spread outward. Because this wasn't some seedy motel hookup. This was a routine, a second life. I called Mark that night, voice shaking. I need everything: texts, emails, bank statements, whatever you can find. He hesitated. Maya, are you sure? Sometimes the details… Yes. The word came out sharper than I meant it to. I need to know how long I've been the other woman in my own relationship. The next morning, the photos arrived. Jake and blonde yoga girl at brunch. Jake carrying her grocery bags. Jake holding her hand in front of a Christmas tree. Last December, when he'd told me he was visiting his parents in Michigan. But the worst part? The way he looked at her. The same soft smile he used to give me. I stared at the pictures until my vision blurred. 3 years together. 2 since we'd moved in. 1 since he'd started talking about kids. And the whole time, he'd been splitting himself in 2. Giving her the same jokes, the same kisses, maybe even the same promises. That night, I sat on our balcony with a bottle of wine, watching the city lights flicker. Somewhere out there, she was probably doing the same thing. Maybe she was happier. Maybe she had no idea I existed. And Jake? He texted me at 11:37 p.m. Long day, crashing at Dave's, love you. I didn't reply. 2 days later, Mark called me into his office. His face looked grim as he slid a manila folder across the desk. You should sit down for this. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first photo hit me like a punch to the throat. Jake with his arm around the blonde woman, his hand resting on her very pregnant belly. The date stamp showed it was taken just 3 days ago. I flipped to the next page. Text messages printed on plain paper. Jake. Only 6 more weeks until I meet my son. Can't wait to hold him. Her. You're going to be the best daddy. The room spun. I actually gasped for air like I'd been underwater. Mark quietly pushed a box of tissues toward me, but I couldn't move. My entire body had gone numb. That's not all, Mark said gently. He showed me bank statements. Jake had been transferring $2,500 every month to a joint account with her. The account was opened 9 months ago, right around the time he'd told me we needed to save more before getting engaged. The receipts were worse. A $3,000 deposit at a luxury baby store, a receipt for prenatal vitamins dated from last winter, a reservation for a baby moon in Hawaii during the same week Jake had supposedly been on a work retreat in Denver. I started laughing. It was either that or scream. All those nights I'd worried I was being paranoid, and the truth was so much worse than anything I'd imagined. Mark gave me the address of her OBGYN. If you want to see it for yourself, he said quietly. I went the next morning, sat in the parking lot for an hour before they arrived together, Jake holding her hand as she waddled toward the entrance, his face glowing with pride. When he leaned down to kiss her stomach right there in broad daylight, something inside me shattered. That night, I sat on our bed surrounded by evidence, tracing my fingers over ultrasound photos Mark had somehow obtained. The baby's due date was my birthday, the cruelest coincidence imaginable. When Jake came home smelling like her lavender perfume, I didn't confront him. I just watched as he kissed my cheek and asked about my day, his wedding band glinting in the light. The lies came so easily to him, and that's when I realized the man I loved didn't exist. I waited until Sunday morning to break him. The day he always made us pancakes before his weekly basketball game, which I now knew was really his weekly visit to her apartment. The smell of coffee filled our kitchen as I laid out the evidence like a prosecutor preparing for trial. Printed text messages, dated photos, even the ultrasound with my birthday circled in red. My hands didn't shake anymore, just cold, steady rage. Jake walked in whistling, still half asleep, until he saw the table. His face went pale. Maya, what? Her due date is my birthday, I said calmly. That's almost poetic, don't you think? For a beautiful 30 seconds, I watched him unravel. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Sweat appeared on his forehead. Then came the excuses. It's not what you think. Classic. We were on a break last year. We weren't. And my personal favorite? The baby might not even be mine." I laughed in his face. "You've been paying for her prenatal care for 8 months, Jake. You think I'm stupid?" That's when he switched tactics. Tears. Actual tears rolling down his cheeks as he grabbed my hands. "I'll end it today. I'll never see her again. Just tell me what to do." The performance was almost impressive. Almost. I yanked my hands away. "You don't get to cry. You made your choice when you put a baby in her while telling me you weren't ready to be a father." His tears dried up instantly, eyes narrowing, voice turning cold. "You've been spying on me? That's insane, Maya." There it was, the real Jake, the one who'd been hiding beneath 3 years of love bombing and future faking. I almost thanked him for making this so easy. I slid a USB drive across the table. "That's copies of everything, for your parents, and hers." His mask fully crumbled then. "You can't do that. Think about the baby." "Oh, I have," I said, standing up. "Which is why I already emailed his future mother this morning. She didn't know about me either, by the way. We had a lovely chat." The color drained from his face. I wish I'd taken a picture. As I walked out with my packed suitcase, he screamed after me. "You're ruining my life." I didn't turn around. "No, Jake, you did that all by yourself." For 3 days after the confrontation, I stayed at my sister's apartment, alternating between crying and staring blankly at the wall. Then my phone blew up. A Facebook message from Jake's mother. "We had no idea. We're so sorry." A Venmo notification. Jake's sister had sent me $500 with the note for moving costs, and then the voicemail that made my stomach drop. It was her, the other woman. "Maya, I need you to know I didn't know. He told me you were his ex who wouldn't let go. I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked. "I'm having his baby in 3 weeks and I don't know what to do." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. The real fireworks started when Jake showed up at my sister's door, red-eyed and desperate. "She left me," he slurred, smelling like whiskey. "You happy now? I lost everything because of you." My sister actually laughed in his face. "You lost everything because you're a lying cheat." Maya just turned on the lights. The final blow came 2 weeks later when Jake's company let him go after someone, not me, forwarded HR his fake paternity leave requests. His parents publicly disowned him on Facebook. And the pregnant girlfriend? She moved back to her hometown to raise the baby near family. As for me, I kept the USB drive as a souvenir. Sometimes when I'm feeling petty, I look at the screenshots of Jake begging me not to tell anyone. Other times, when the anger fades, I remember how he looked that last morning, not like the villain of my story, but like a pathetic man who thought he could have it all. The truth is, hiring that PI didn't just expose Jake. It exposed how little I thought of myself to stay with someone who treated our love like an option. That's the real wound that takes time to heal. But here's what they don't tell you about revenge. It doesn't actually make the pain go away. The satisfaction fades. The anger dulls. What stays is the lesson. Never ignore that tiny voice in your gut that whispers, "Something's wrong," because 9 times out of 10, that voice is right.